Go ahead.
All right. Back to the cycle class. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Here we go. So we left off on Bill's story on page 5, and we're going to continue to see our lives in Bill's story. We're going to continue to see how to stay off this cycle and spot the problem, what's going on internally and rooted in the mind and the body, and the solution on how to treat what's going on with us to be relieved from alcoholism and drug addiction. And that's the whole point. So this is exciting, and let's go. So page 5, halfway down page 5, Bill's story out of the big book, okay? It says this: gradually things got worse, okay? As we're going through Bill's story, and he's trying to stop drinking, and just this downward spiral of his life that I can relate to, that gradually things get worse. It's a progressive disease. It's a spiritual disease rooted in the mind, and the body's affected with an allergy that we can't control the substance once we put it in our body. But this disease gets worse gradually over time. It doesn't get better. It gets worse and worse and worse until we understand what the problem actually is, and that there's one solution for this problem, and that solution is God and the things of God. And if you address the spiritual malady, which is your selfish and self-centeredness, we can pull out of this thing, alcoholism and drug addiction, which basically is a death sentence. As long as you stay alive on this earth, you're going to be miserable, destroying your life and everybody who cares about you, and then eventually physically dying. So you can continue on in this existence of being a pitiful alcoholic drug addict, or you can choose the only path, the one way, the solution to relieve yourself from this situation. Because you got to understand, gradually things are just going to get worse and worse and worse until you come into this place in your life where you're willing to take suggestions and try something that will 100% work, okay? So gradually things got worse on page 5, halfway down. The house was taken over by the mortgage holder. My mother-in-law died. My wife and father-in-law became ill. It's like gradually things got worse and worse and worse. He lost his house. His family members are getting ill and dying. I lost my place to live. I ended up, over years and years and years of it gradually getting worse. I would always get another place somehow. Then moved to couch surfing, staying with friends, and then at the very, very end, we had a truck. Me and my wife now, my girlfriend then, we had a truck and eventually lost that. So it just gets worse and worse and worse. Not to mention my spiritual condition got worse and worse and worse, and I got more insane in my mind, and my body was sick as well. Right? So he lost his house. People are dying off. Now look what happens. Next paragraph. Then I got a promising business opportunity. Stocks were at a low point of 1932, and I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profits. Then I went on a prodigious bender, and that chance vanished. So opportunity after opportunity. This is back in the 30s now. The stock market crashed in 29. In 1932, it started getting life again. So Bill got together a group who had some money, and they had a little group. They were going to make some money in the stock market. So even when things are looking hopeful and you got an opportunity right in front of you, what does he do? He goes on a spree, a prodigious bender, and blows the opportunity. Like, how many opportunities did I blow in my life? Things would hold this job and get this job. I can remember back in like 2001, I moved to Chico. I was going to do the college thing, just ended up partying, but I had it all lined up. I got a job, a plush little job. I was going to make enough money to pay my $250 renting a room in Chico, California, dirt cheap. I had everything set up. All I had to do was show up to work. I even had a coworker coming by my house to pick me up to take me to work. But I went on a prodigious bender and coked out, drinking escapade all night, and I just said, I'm not going. and he comes to my house to pick me up. He says, "Are you sure?" I said, "I'm sure." "Thanks, bud. I ain't going." So I lost that job opportunity, ended up sleeping on couches, and then eventually had to move back home. Or when I did come back home years later, a group of people got together and came with what I thought was a good opportunity, business opportunity, and we were going to grow weed. We're going to light up houses. They had the houses, they had the money, they had the lights, they had everything. All I got to do is sit in there and take care of the weed. And I blew that too, because I'm a full-blown drug addict, and me getting high was more important. Now, thank God I blew that opportunity. Don't get it twisted. I'm just telling you. All these opportunities I had, and in my goofy mind, I'm thinking, oh, here's my chance. I'm going to make money, a good business opportunity. But what did I do? I blew it. Just like Bill. Right before he's about to make this money in the stock market, what does he do? He goes on a spree. So whether things are going really bad in your life, we continue to put stuff in our body. Or whether things are going good in our lives, we continue to put stuff in our bodies. Going on a spree, not being able to control it, having to face more truths and consequences. Hoping that we emerge remorseful and get to make some more firm resolutions, right? So, once again, I'm seeing my life and Bill's life. Okay, back to the reading, page 5. It says, after Bill went on this bender and this spree, right, he says, I woke up. This had to be stopped. Yeah, right? I saw I could not take so much as one drink. Once again, another bender, like I've done so many times, blow opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. You get to this point where it's getting old. You wake up and you have this aha moment. I need to stop. I can't have so much of not even one drink, one drug. Wow. So here he is, having this, I can't do it. He's up. I was through forever. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises, but even my wife happily observed that this time I meant business. And so I did. So we come to this, I can't have one drink, one joint, one line, one pill, one of anything. Are you there? Because I know in Doctor's Opinion on page XXX, it says that the only way for us is entire abstinence. Here's our stopping moment. Did you hear that? Do you understand what that means? Entire abstinence. That means that you can't have a sip, a puff, a sniff, a swallow of anything ever for the rest of your life. That's what entire abstinence means, just in case we're confused. Entire abstinence means zero. So if you have a reservation that you're going to be able to have a beer here, a beer there, a joint here, whatever, you need to squash that reservation and bring that to God and work the steps and stay surrendered and get that out. Now that thought may come, but we don't agree with thoughts like that, do we? And we stay active in this spiritual program of action, because some of you may be messing around with that reservation that I think I can still have a drink. So this has to dawn on us that we cannot have any drinks. And if you see, he has made a lot of sweet promises as life went on. But this time, it was a little different. And even his wife noticed. Like, how times have we emerged remorseful, we made firm resolutions, and all these promises that turned into broken promises? Some of them early on for me, I know I said what I knew the person wanted to hear, right? I needed a place to stay. I need to get back in the good graces of my parents. I need my girl to stop being mad at me. So I'm going to tell them exactly what they want to hear. I'm going to make promise after promise after promise, as I've done over the years. But there was a time where some of these promises I actually meant. Like, are you there in your walk, in your life? Do you mean the promises that you're actually making? If you haven't made, are you going to be willing to make a promise that you're done and you're going to do what it takes and take suggestions and die to self daily and stay in these three parts and look to God every day and stay around like-minded people and work through all the steps and keep working through the steps, take other people through the steps so you can have a life that you never thought was possible? Like, is that where you're at? Like, are you still making these sweet promises that I've made so many times that I didn't really mean? I was just waiting and biding my time to where I was in this great obsession still that I was going to be able to control my drinking somehow, some way. Like, is that where you're at? Or are you at this place where I mean this promise I'm trying to make right now? Like, I mean it, right? Like, those are the people that you're ready to work with, right? If you mean it and you want this, you're not quite sure how it's going to work, and you know, your past history tells you it hasn't worked up to the, but you're open-minded and willing that this time it's going to work, because it will, you know, that one can work with you, right? And so, look at the next paragraph, though. The very next paragraph. What does it say? Shortly afterward, I came home drunk. Shortly after all that, here I am drunk again. I came home drunk. I left the house, and regardless of all my past history, all the consequences, all the hurt, all the ache, all the sorrow, I left my house that day knowing that I need to stay far away, but yet I came home drunk. Now that is amazing, okay? Look what it says. There had been no fight even. No fight. I left the house knowing that my life is a freaking poop show at best, and I came home drunk. No fight in it. What does it say? Where had been my high resolve? Remember, we're making promises. We've been on this cycle. We've had truths and consequences in our lives. We've emerged remorseful countless times. We made firm resolution on firm resolution, telling everybody. And then we got to a place even where we actually meant it. Like we're meaning these promises now. Like we're desiring to have a better life. We want change, right? But I come home drunk. Where's my high resolve? I simply didn't know. It says, it hadn't even come to mind. Someone had pushed a drink my way, and I had taken it. Was I crazy? I'm at the place where I'm meaning these promises. And yet, I leave the house that day, and shortly after, I wind up drunk, and I had no fight. Where's this high resolve? Someone pushed a drink my way and I took it and I drank it. And I'm trying to play it off now. Back to sneaking around. I left the house that day and I go drink, sneak, go get high, get a sack, smoke some weed. And there I am, drunk. Where's my high resolve? No fight at all, right? It's like, am I crazy? It's like, I don't understand the problem. How is that possible? Like, I'm an ex-addict. I was baffled. I didn't understand because I didn't know what the problem was, right? Turn with me to page 22. 22. Page 22 out of the big book, halfway down. Starting at the paragraph, why does he behave? Okay? Page 22, halfway down. Let's keep understanding the actual problem so we know what we're up against. And then we're going to get to the solution, okay? Why do we behave? Like, am I crazy? Why do I keep doing this? Like, in other areas of my life, I wouldn't go put my hand on a hot stove that burned me 1,000 times before. And yet I go leave the house and I go put a drink in me or a drug in me, knowing the consequence. Why do I behave like this? Am I crazy? Let's understand the problem a little bit better together, okay? Page 22, halfway down. Why does he behave like this? Like, don't underestimate how powerful this book is. This book is talking about you. Hello? It's talking about you. It's breaking down. Have you ever wondered, like, what is wrong with you? Why do you keep going back? It's breaking it down for us. That's why I love this. Right? But you got to be open and willing and honest with yourself to receive it. Right? It says, why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle with all its intended suffering and humiliation, why is it he takes that one drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters? What is going on? What is going on with the addict alcoholic? I don't think we have a clear understanding of the actual problem. And that's what we're doing. We're understanding the problem and also understanding the solution. Why does he behave like this? Are you crazy? Right? We're going to go to some scripture that may help us as well. Romans 7:15, and James is going to read that.
I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate.
Are we crazy? What's going on? We come to this place where we made these promises that we're actually sincere about, right? We want change. We want to stop. We know our life's a mess. Like, are we crazy? Like, I don't want to keep doing these things, but I leave the house and I do exactly what I don't want to do. Like, I don't have the power not to keep putting stuff in my body when I know it's not helping, when I know it has consequences, when I know it's making my life a living hell. But I'm blocked off from the necessary power. You know? Let's talk more about this problem. Okay, continue reading on. It says this. After was I crazy? It says, you want to just stop there a little bit some more? Was I crazy? I mean, you show some type of common sense in other matters. Why is it that us alcoholic addicts have no willpower, no common sense around putting substance in our body? Are you crazy? You're not going to go purposely put your hand or face on a hot stove. You know the stove is hot. You've been burned by it before. What is going on? You know when you put the substance in your body, what happens? What is going on? Hey, we got to get there. We got to get to where we need to go. This is insane. Okay, so it says, after was I crazy? I begin to wonder, am I crazy? Well, I kind of begin to wonder if I was. This type of action, thinking and action, makes no sense. Okay? I begin to wonder, for such an appalling lack of perspective seemed near being just that. Okay, why is Bill beginning to wonder? Why should we begin to wonder if we're crazy? They just said why. Read the words. Understand the words. Why? Watch this. I begin to wonder for such an appalling, to have such an appalling lack of perspective. It's appalling to keep going, to leave your house that day and go get a beer. That's appalling. That's an appalling lack of perspective. In other areas in our life, we would never be able to continue in this type of action. You know what it's going to do. You know the consequences. We've been over it. It's an appalling lack of perspective for us to keep putting substance in our bodies. Are you crazy? And yet, Romans 7:15 tells us we're powerless to stop doing this. So that should point us to our solution, which we're going to get to. Who has the power? to 100% guarantee this appalling lack of perspective doesn't play out in your life, especially around drinking and using. Okay? And he will help you in other areas too. Let's not leave that out. Okay, so it says, wow. Now, next line. Okay, renewing my resolve. You ready? Here we go. I'm going to give it a good old college try again. You know, here we go. Maybe this time will be different. All the other hundreds of times tell me otherwise, but this time may be different. Here we go. Renewing my resolve, I tried again. Ready? Come on. Some time passed and confidence began to be replaced by cocksureness. Wow. So there are those times I was the 2-week wonder guy. Enough consequences happened. I meant the broken promise. So acting it out of my own human effort and self-will, pull up my bootstraps, and I'm going to try again. Let me try again. I'm going to try to stay sober. I'm going to try not to go put a substance in my body, right? And then, oh, wow, I'm a week or two in this. I'm replaced by cocksureness. I could laugh at the gin mills. Here he goes. Look at that pride building. He's walking by the little gin spots. Yeah, no big deal, right? Now I have what it takes. Now I have what it takes. I. You know, watch this. One day, I walked into a cafe to telephone. Just going in there, make a quick call. I'd walk by it many days, you know, for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, who knows. You know, I'm just walking around, you know, going to my work, going to my job. So pride's building, ego's rebuilding, feeling pretty good about myself, you know. I walk into this cafe to make a phone call. Sounds like the guy that went in there to get lunch and had some whiskey in his milk, right? So I go in there and make a phone call. Here we go. Now what happens? In no time, I was beating on the bar, asking myself how it happened. How did this happen again? I left my house that morning, and next thing I know, I'm drinking some beers. I'm smoking some weed. I popped that pill that I found. I went to go visit my aunt so-and-so, and I went to use her bathroom, and right there on the kitchen sink was some Vicodin. And I took a couple and popped them. And I'm sitting back, how did this happen, right? Let's see. Beating on the bar, asking myself how it happened. As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I would manage better next time, right? I, self. But I might as well get good and drunk then. And I did. So, he was feeling pretty good. He meant he wanted to stop. Quickly after he's drunk, he pulls himself up again. He has a 2-week wonder experience. He's walking by the spots. You know, a week go by, you think, ego's rebuilding. Then a week or two later, he goes in there just to make a phone call. And you're banging on the bar, drunk, wondering how it happened. Because we don't understand the problem, right? And the problem is this right here. Our spiritual condition, our selfish and self-centeredness, and because of this, we're spiritually sick. We're selfish to the core. It's all about me, I, self. Our minds are insane. And we can only sit in this for so long until our sick minds tells us it's a good idea to put something in our body to get some relief from this. From what? From the spiritual malady. Because if we don't know the problem of spiritual malady, watch what happens. We know in our book that on page 23 that once the malady has a hold, they are a baffled lot. Want to turn to 23? Let's go. Come on. Page 23. Page 23, a little more than halfway down. This is the problem. You can walk for a couple weeks past the gin mills, you know, relatively thinking you're doing better, running on self-will, self-power, right? And all of a sudden, you go in there to make a phone call, or you stop to get some lunch, and the thought crosses your mind because you're a little irritated. Irritation's been building. stuff's happening, you're not seeking God. You're not treating this malady with God and the things of God. You're running on your own self-will, your own self-power, trying to stay away. Mental blank spot comes. Next thing you know, you're banging on the bar and you're drunk once again. Drunk once again. Because in page 23 it says, once the malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. So if you don't know what the problem is, the spiritual malady, the disconnection from God, you're not treating this properly, the day is coming where you will have a mental blank spot and put another substance back in your body. It's just going to happen. Because we don't understand what the problem is. And the problem is the spiritual malady, our selfish and self-centeredness, disconnection from God, making ourselves available for the things of God. If you think you're just going to stay away and not relapse and not actively seek God and not actively seek your internal condition, the malady, and work with others, then you're mistaken. Because you will be right back on this cycle. Countless examples. Okay, the last little part we're going to go into. So we ended up right there where, on his own power, self-will. He says, I told myself I would manage better next time, but I might as well get good and drunk then, and I did, right? The mental blank spot hit him. He wasn't addressing the malady. The problem is the spiritual malady. He got so restless, irritable, discontent. His ego and his pride was building. He let his guard down, mental blank spot. Next thing you know, he's putting substance in his body, and there he is, drunk and lit up all again. He'll have to go through this process of more truth and consequence, hopefully emerging remorseful, having another chance to have a firm resolution and another promise. We got to know what the problem is. The problem is you have to treat your internal condition with God and the things of God. If you think you can do it on your own self-will power, you're going to just keep staying on this cycle. So, let's end on this little section right here. Page 87 of the big book touches on the real problem. And this is what we need God's help with every single day. Okay? Page 87. I'm going to jump around a couple pages, one line on each page, just to hit home what the problem is. Okay? Page 87. Okay, we ask especially, pay attention to that word, especially for freedom from self-will. You need to ask God and stay in the three parts and have a daily, intimate relationship. Be discipled, the sanctification process with God. Because you need His help, especially to have freedom from self-will. Self-will is the problem, right? You were never created. Jesus didn't die on that cross and model for us living in God's will for us to keep going back to living in self-will, justifying it and thinking it's okay to live in self-will. You better ask especially for freedom from self-will. Page 86. Here it goes again. Page 86 of the big book, the page previous. It says this, like halfway down. Especially, again, see the word? Especially asking that we be divorced from what? From self-pity and then dishonest or self-seeking motives. On a daily basis, if you're not waking up asking God for His help and His power to divorce you from self-pity, from your dishonest and self-seeking motives, which are so deep, and ask Him to show you these things, you're going to be living in self-will that day. This is a daily approach. You better especially be asking for this. Okay? And then page 62, it says this. One line on page 62. It says, above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of selfishness. Above everything else, we alcoholics, drug addicts, or anybody walking the earth must be rid of this selfishness. That's above everything. Especially, you need to ask to help with living in self-will, falling into self-pity or self-seeking motives, And especially above everything else, we need God's help with this selfishness. Because on page 83 it says the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it out. And that's on a daily basis. So we're going to end on some scriptures and we'll close for today. So Sam is going to read 2 Corinthians 5, 14 through 15.
For Christ's love compels us because we are convinced that one died for all, and therefore all died. And he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again.
So he died so we can join him in death and now be alive to God to do God's will and live for God and the things of God. That's why he died. He didn't die so you to go back living for yourself, living in self-will. So we need to especially ask for God's help to not go back to living in self-will. Because we're going to wake up in our head focused on self and living that day in self-will if we're not careful. And we may slip into doing that anyway. We need to repent from that and get back to God, get back buried in Christ so we can have the Holy Spirit living through our lives. You see that? He didn't die for you to go back living for yourself. So we need to especially ask him for his help not to be living in self-will. You see that? Okay, and then last two verses, Jake's going to read Psalm 46:10.
Be still and know that I am God. I will be honored by every nation. I will be honored throughout the world.
Okay, let's get to the solution. We'll end on the solution. So, because we're not going to be able to get off the cycle on our own power, trying our best to pull our boots up from the straps and move and do this and do that, we're going to need God's help. Because the problem was the spiritual malady, disconnection from God, blocked off from his power to stay off this cycle, have an intimate relationship with him. So we need, the solution is God and the things of God. So we need to every morning be still and know that God's God. And what does that mean? That I'm not God. God, you're God and I'm not. So you're in control and I'm not in control. And I need to relinquish me taking back the reins of my life and living in self-will on a daily basis. And sit quiet and know you're God and I'm not. You're in control and I'm not. Forgive me for trying to live in self-will and take back control, right? So that's firmly planted on a daily basis, right? And then Exodus 15, 25 through 26.
Then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became fit to drink. There the Lord issued a ruling and instruction for them, and put them to the test. He said, if you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you.
Wow. So the promise of God is that he will heal this spiritual disease, the spiritual malady. Okay? By throwing the cross into the water, the wood into the water, God changes our bitterness in our life and changes it into joy of knowing God and walking with God. You understand? And then he says, if you keep my precepts and my commands on your mind and you remain in me on a daily basis, I am promising you healing that the world does not get. The world is in Egypt. The world has all kinds of disease that they can't even escape from. All of a sudden, alcoholism and drug addiction is this worldwide pandemic that nobody has an answer for. You're just going to relapse. Oh, that's Uncle so-and-so. He's never going to change. And yet the answer is right in front of your face. And it's laid out beautifully that it's a spiritual problem. Alcoholism and drug addiction is a spiritual problem. Selfish and self-centeredness. That if you let God treat, you will recover from it. And you will walk in freedom. You won't have to be plagued by the disease of the world that says there is no solution for alcoholism and drug addiction. But this has been around for a long time, that God is the solution for alcoholism and drug addiction. And it's 100% guaranteed to work. So, how you like them apples? We're going to close right there. See y'all in a couple weeks.